Lincoln's election served as the primary catalyst of the American Civil War.
There it is, dude. All right, we're back, dude. Episode 3.
We are back for episode 3.
The
ladies
live
and gentlemen.
podcast broadcast. Brought to you by Phil Reynolds Fitness,
That's right.
AETV,
And Dent Guys.
and the Dent Guys. The Dent Guys of Atlanta, LLC.
That's right.
All right, let me run this music down. So, this week, we're going to do a deep dive on Abe Lincoln. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
But we do need to. That needs to be like our homework assignment is like somebody needs to do a damn deep dive on Abe Lincoln, okay? Because I don't think anybody knows what the hell was going on there.
Apparently not. This is
Well, I've heard a lot about Lincoln, dude, lately. A lot of Lincoln talk because of Trump, and that's what I was getting at before we started. Is that someone? Whenever I say someone, it's just some shit I read online. Okay,
Yeah.
so whenever I say someone, it means some comment somewhere said this was that Lincoln did all these things that were considered like non-presidential, right? Shit that you wouldn't people wouldn't consider doing today, like.
executive branch stuff that this hasn't been done before.
Exactly, yeah. And because everybody's like, oh, bow out. We should bow out, smooth transition of power, whatever. It's like, that ain't what Lincoln was into. He was like, you're not seceding. Like, and really, I don't even know Lincoln that well. So, everything I say is talking straight out of my bunghole. But from what I read on the internet, dude.
Yeah, the internet's.
He did some crazy things for his time, and yet he's remembered in a way that's like he's a hero, dude. Everyone just thinks Lincoln ended slavery, essentially, right?
And it's been recently released that he killed vampires.
Oh yeah, that documentary came
there's
out a
a
few
documentary?
years ago. Yeah, I've actually haven't seen that.
Oh, it's really good.
Is it awesome?
It's really good.
Dude, I remember wanting to see it so bad when it came out because it like slow-mo special effects and
Yes.
everything looks so sick. Man, I'm writing that down. I'm so glad you reminded me of that because
It's such a
what was
good
it called?
movie.
It was called like Abe Lincoln
Vampire Hunter or something like that, yeah.
I'm writing that down, dude. I got to remember to watch that.
I mean, so thanks to Abe, we don't have the vampire problem though.
Yeah. So, I mean, at least he
could
did
have had.
that for us.
Yeah.
And that's on his wiki. You can look that up to verify that.
Yeah.
It's there. All I got to do is Google it. It's right there.
Yeah.
2016.
But I didn't realize that, right off a wiki here, if you search, who did Abraham Lincoln run against when he for his first election, and then it says Lincoln's election served as the primary catalyst of the American Civil War. I was like, what the heck? But yeah, I mean, that was the other thing I was learning about the other day, that he was the first president to sign executive orders. And that somehow he...
Now, okay, so I looked that up after you told me. That's not true either.
That's not true either.
It's not true. I'm not even going to say anything's not true or true.
Right.
But what the internet gave me was that, no, Washington was the first to do executive orders. Because if you go, let's see if I press that button. Cool. So if we push presidential executive orders, it gave me like a breakdown of how many each president did.
Okay, good.
Right, and dude, Ulysses S. Grant.
We're getting fact checked on.
Yeah, this is like the
Live.
Rogan. This is like the Joe Rogan podcast, dude.
No, I like it.
You don't let Alex Jones say anything. You fact check everything as he says. Hold on. We're gonna fact check that. Check out Ulysses S. Grant over here, though, dude. 217. What a boss. Theodore Roosevelt with 1,000. Coolidge with 1,200.
Yeah.
3,700 from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Wow, dude. 3,700 executive orders. Look at that. Donald J. only 195, man, because he's a conservative guy.
Yeah. Relatively.
So
few.
this is what I looked at when you said that, and I was like, well, but I mean, how many did Lincoln do? He did do 48. which people had only done like 20 before him at the most. So, I mean, maybe it was unprecedented for its time. Wasn't Roosevelt? Yeah, Franklin. He was in office for 12.12 years. There's some numerology there probably, too,
Yeah.
that we need to look into. Oh, look into it, man. Look into it. Cool. All right. Well, what are we gunning for on episode 3 today, man? Because I got a couple things here, but I'm gonna put the ball in your court and just see where your head's at, man.
I mean,
before I go on my
we could,
diatribe.
we could do the election update. I've spent a little bit of time on that because we do have some developments.
And you know what I want to do eventually, like which I'd like to do these. I think doing it once a month is fun, and I'd like to do some of my own in between. But you and I should definitely keep doing them once a month,
Okay.
and it would be nice, like, to go back and watch and maybe cut up these clips with the specific topics and break it down into like 10-minute, however long we go on. Break down the videos into the topics we're covering, because we obviously are going to transition at 10, 15, 20 minutes. We'll be talking about something else, but you could take that little snippet. And so when you said election update, that just reminded me of that, because that could be you could cut the 10 minutes and say, here's our election update. So give it to me.
Election update.
Give
Well,
me the election update.
Yeah, the election update. I mean, there's still very different narratives being told on the
For
mainstream
sure.
media versus
sure.
the alt news, what's interesting is that people like Newsmax are getting press from the mainstream media, and people like
Who's talking about them?
SNL did a skit
Making fun of Newsmax?
called Sports Max.
Oh.
And they were talking about, they were like these Jets fans that were like, the Jets are going to the Super Bowl. And then it was like, they're just like really joking about it. And they're like, I see these numbers like, okay, so they scored this many points in the first quarter. And then all of a sudden the Bills got, all these points. Where do these points come from?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. But then
Dude, they're such douchebags, man.
yeah, so
God.
that's pretty funny.
Were you watching this, or did you just see it in your perusing?
I saw
Like, do you watch SNL?
I saw
Okay.
I saw Newsmax respond to it.
I figured you didn't, but
And then they were they were like, they thought it was funny. They were like, hey, you know what? We would like to thank you that you actually produced something that was funny, because you were using us as material. So that
yeah, and it's just like it's the old any publicity is good publicity, right? So
for
they're like,
sure.
but I mean, clearly living rent free in their heads, like Newsmax is getting in there, obviously.
yeah.
All right, so which that was supposed to be our election update, but we talked about Newsmax. But let me just ask you point blank, dude, who is getting inaugurated January 20th? Now, I think last time we kind of both agreed that it's still, like, if we were betting, I think we were both still betting Trump. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I was thinking I was betting Trump at the time. For
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so now the bookie calls up and he's like, look, I'm giving you one last chance, dude.
One last bet.
If you want to move the chips around,
Do you want?
you taking Trump or Biden?
And then I'm like, I'm probably going to be saying that Biden's probably going to be the president.
It does seem that way,
It does
right?
seem that way.
It seems that way, but they probably want it to seem that way too at the same time. Plays right into their hand.
That's their best play. I mean, like mainstream media or big tech or whatever. I mean, that's their best play is to keep playing that narrative no matter what.
Yeah, no, they have no choice. Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, I've talked to people that are like, it's, if what the right news channels are saying, right as being like alt-right or conservative news channels are saying, then that would mean, our democracy has, fallen or been been corrupted.
Right.
And
man, are we even allowed to? What? You know what, dude? I'm thinking in my head, like, am I even allowed to say election fraud on here? Are they going to do?
You can't really say election fraud.
But if you do happen to say election fraud, like the mainstream media is like, this jeopardizes our democracy, not to hand it off to Biden because he won, but the fraudulent, all the evidence of fraud does not jeopardize our democracy. Like, they don't cover that. And I mean, isn't that what really jeopardizes it? It's not the fact that we won't have the transfer of power.
Right.
What jeopardizes it is that the way we chose the next president was completely compromised. And they just ignore that. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, there was other things like the video of them pulling bags of ballots out from under the desk in Georgia,
under the table.
and then there was this lady saying that was debunked. It was like whatever hearing, and it was like, how was that even debunked? Like, do they know what was in those bags?
Dude, that lady was losing it. I only watched a little clip of that, but she was so like just raging, basically. You know what I mean? Because when you have no argument, what else can you do but turn to like?
Well, then she said there was a poll observer there. Like I thought all the poll observers were sent home because of some report of a pipe being busted or something.
Clogged toilet, dude.
And there wasn't. Yeah,
I dropped a big old deuce.
Someone dropped a big old deuce. We got to clear out everybody.
They probably had an operative who's like, "Look, I want you to eat McDonald's, Taco Bell, everything you can get your hands on. It's on us, okay? Just cram that down for about 3 days. You don't use the bathroom until you get to the polling place. I need you clogging those bad boys."
Yeah, just toilet after toilet. I mean, so that was a shady thing that happened too. And then what I was listening to also was that
video barely got played in the mainstream though. Like, we're on the internet looking for this stuff. You know what I mean?
I mean, yes, we don't know what was in those bags, and we don't know if the poll observers even knew there was bags there. But I mean,
right.
But okay, so they're saying there's a poll observers that after everybody got sent home, there were still poll observers there. Were they from the Republican Party, or I mean, because they're supposed to be the election law is supposed to be there's
1 and 1 or something.
1 and 1, yeah. There's supposed to be at least a 1-to-1 ratio, and so, you know, I don't think I saw that. I mean, I saw like people that looked like they may be poll observers, but they were taking bags out too, and they were, you know, like looked like they were helping. So it's like, I don't know who's this, and then, but yeah, that just seemed like really fishy to me. I mean, sure, it could be all legit, you know, and there's the whole pipe bust sending people home. Like,
I mean,
should you have kept counting? Would that have been a good idea to keep counting?
Couldn't you just move the operation like to a different area? Like, weren't they counting at where were they counting at? I can't remember.
They're acting like there was a fire.
Yeah, no, they were counting somewhere huge where it's like, I'm sure
State
there's
Farm Arena.
Yeah, they're at the State. That's right. They're formerly Phillips Arena, by the way.
Phillips Arena.
Yeah, corporate arena, either way. But it's like, so there was no other space in this building because a pipe burst, which turned out I don't even think was true.
No, it wasn't even true.
Yeah, so there's just holes all in these stories, dude. And then you see the video, and did you see the one where they had the four camera angles like twisted and lined up to show the entire room? They like putting a puzzle together. They're like, here, if we use these 4 cameras, you can actually see the entire room. But like, clearly they tell everyone to go home.
Yeah.
Once everyone's gone home, there's like 3 of them left.
Yeah.
And then she goes over to the table. No, like that table was there all day. No one knew there were ballots under there.
Yeah.
Now at like whatever 11 at night or whatever, like, is now the time to go get the ballots in suitcases, you know? And then you had in Detroit where you were saying earlier, them putting cardboard. I mean, there were people coming in and out of Detroit. The security was like lax. People were coming in and out into the counting room with like backpacks on, wheeling in suitcases, and no one was checking to see what was in those things, you know? So and then they're putting up poster board and shit over the windows. It's like, what? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason at all to cover what's going on in the counting room just because people are outside the glass looking in. Even if they're doing whatever they're doing outside the glass, there's no reason to block their view. That doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and especially after their stories, like they were trying to put up cameras or something, or it was something, their excuse for what they were doing during the time of nothing being able to be seen into, you know, it's like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, why are you blocking views at, you know,
right?
It's like, it's not like you're having a big orgy in
Is
there,
yeah,
and you're trying to like block it out.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and then do you see the similarities between Venezuela and in this election?
Well, yeah, I mean, what they were saying about Dominion was that it was designed like with Hugo Chavez in mind.
Well, they had a manual. They're like, okay, if you start losing, you stop the counts, shut everything down. They adjust the computers and then boot everything back
that
up.
Bad boy back up.
Back at 3 a.m. And that's what they did. And I was like,
exactly what they did with Biden.
I was like, that's weird because all the swing states, that's what they did too.
Yep.
And so, So like,
And like, why? I mean, it's just there's so much. I do like the argument, but I don't. No one pays attention to it about like, oh, why wouldn't you want it looked into? Okay, you're guy one, right? If you're like, I'm a Biden guy, Biden won, fair and square,
sure.
no fraud. How can you even say that? Why wouldn't your response be, go ahead and look into it, dude? There was no fraud. Like, good luck finding anything because nothing exists. Why do you have to be so screaming from the mountaintop? There was no fraud, and you're not a patriot if you say there was. Like that makes everyone think they're definitely what it's the defensive person, right? It's the person who like you're like, hey man, did you? I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example that's not about.
Did you kill your wife?
Well, yeah, that's an extreme one. I was gonna say like, did you stink up the bathroom?
Did you stink up the bathroom?
But it's
Oh,
like it's like when someone farts in class in elementary school. It's like the most defensive kid when he gets accused of farting.
Yeah.
Whoever's the most like, no, it was not me. How dare you?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, it was definitely you
definitely
then
this
because you wouldn't get that offended at us accusing you. You would just like, no, it wasn't me. I don't know what to tell you.
But
Like,
if you're a kid that does that all the time, you eventually wise up to not doing that. You're like, okay, now if I do fart, I have to act really cool now.
hey, that kid might have a condition. Okay. He might be a vegan. All right. They pass a lot of gas.
He could be a vegan.
He might be an underdeveloped vegan.
Because the bacteria in your gut like to eat carbs.
Yeah, no. Which just off topic. I was asking Alessandra about that the other day, and I was like, look, when we eat carnivore, did you notice that like you just don't have any gas?
You don't have any gas
at all? And she was like, yeah, totally. And I was like, yeah, me too. Someone was saying that the other day, and it just kind of triggered in my head. I was like, man, that's so true. When you're carnivore, and then when you switch, like when you're eating, even keto, really mostly. As soon as you put a couple vegetables and carbs in there, it's like the gas comes back, man. It's crazy how that works. But let's get back. Let's get back to the election. So I think I'm the nihilist negative part of me is definitely like, yeah, it's Biden. And I got a couple reasons. So, I mean, I've thought about taking my Trump towel down. Okay. I got the Trump. I'm wearing the American worker hat, which by the way, this hat I'm starting to think might've been an ironic joke because it came out like right before COVID. And then everybody like lost their job. And I'm like, dude, are they rubbing it? And of course, now here I am sitting here wearing it, but it's like, are they just rubbing it right in our faces? Like, yeah, American worker, good luck, like, but, so Trump, I'm trying to,
I have a theory about that too.
I'm trying to boil it down when I take these pauses. I'm trying to boil down my thoughts concisely. And it's basically like, I feel that Trump had the opportunity to burn it all down. Like, he told Hillary, you'd be in jail. They chanted lock her up at his rallies, and he acted like he was into that. Yeah. And he had the chance during this 4 years. You shouldn't, because people always used to say, oh, well, in his next 4 years when he wins, that's when he's really going to unleash because he doesn't have to worry about re-election. Now, that could have been his plan, but your plan should have been to do what's right regardless re-election or not. You shouldn't be gaming 8 years when it's not guaranteed. You should do everything you can in the 4. Now, I think he did put out some good policies from a political standpoint, but the whole thing has gotten me so jaded, like the fraud, the Trump kind of not going scorched earth way sooner. It's gotten me so jaded to the point where I'm like, was Trump even our guy all along? I don't know. Maybe he's Zion Dawn, dude.
Yeah, it could. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I was thinking, like, he was a Democrat way back when, and then he, let's just say, let's just give the example.
Are you going to the Democrat operative? Are you going down that road?
He could have been a Democrat operative, so
undercover, covert.
And then like he's playing this actor part of being the conservative leader, the controlled opposition. Yeah. And then like he plays up all the tropes of make the left hate him, right?
Right.
And even maybe even some right. I mean, there's plenty of like Republicans that do not like him either.
Plenty.
And then McConnell's even there over there like
Oh yeah, McConnell caved.
Congratulations, Biden.
He caved hard, but he's a freaking loser, man.
Yeah.
Like just one look at that guy, and you're like, all right, like
I mean, there's plenty of Republican losers. And so I'm like, how do these people keep getting reelected? But then
keep voting for him, dude.
Who is
Dominion keeps assigning them votes.
Who is voting for Pelosi at this point?
Yeah, right.
Even from the left,
Right.
like who wants her in office? And then so you got all these people that are like doing all this stuff, and then they prop up Biden. And then now Biden's getting thrown under the bus with the Hunter Biden stuff.
Yeah,
and so it's like,
and all of that was out. All of that was out before the election too.
But the media held it back. As long
big
as
time.
it could.
Yeah,
and then so now they're like, oh, it's coming out. They're like, oh, well, I guess we'll just throw him under the bus. Oh, well, luckily he has a great vice president that can be president. And then I'm like, that seems like that was your plan this whole time.
They're like, well. It was. No, they're not. No, they're not going to say that. But I mean, all these theories have been around since well before the election, right? The whole idea of like, I mean, Biden's old as hell. He was completely unpopular in the primary. They all trashed him. Kamala was the first one to drop out. But the idea that like Biden will just hand it over to whoever is his VP has been around since he was selected as the nominee. So that's completely believable. The Hunter Biden stuff was all over the place. I mean, unfortunately, all most people focused on was his dong pictures that came out. Like people were just like completely. Now I get it because there was some like possible pedophilic, even incestual pedophilic accusatory, actions going on there is what people were saying. There was no hard proof from anything I ever heard that any of it was like, none of it was fleshed out. Of course, it should have been looked into. Supposedly, Rudy had the laptop and all that stuff. But again, the hammer wasn't dropped, dude. The hammer was not dropped. And I vacillate between the hammer wasn't dropped because of the whole idea of re-election and not going too hard and whatever, or the hammer wasn't dropped because they didn't want to drop the hammer. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want to do it because they were like, what? Well, hold on. I'm not explaining that correctly. I vacillate between that's what I just said was the same thing. They didn't drop the hammer because they didn't want to. Like they're all in cahoots together, right? Trump, everybody. They're like, well, we're not going to, you know what I mean? Because then they'll come for us next, whatever. Or the mainstream media is actually that powerful and influential in the fact that so many, we'll call them normies, just aren't in tune with this. Like they're not seeing the photos online. Like, I mean, the dong is all blurred out in most of the photos, but it was, when it came out, dude, it was easy to find those photos. Like you pop onto 4chan, every other thread was a Hunter Biden thread. Whether it was being done intentionally to distract you with his dong, or where people were actually like, hey, look at these photos, there's something here.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It was huge. I mean, it was there. But then you think, you're like, well, I go on the internet. So, of course, I see it. Of course, I'm in tune with it. But, like, my parents don't use the internet. A lot of my friends aren't on, like, message boards and stuff looking for information. So maybe the mainstream media is that sort of powerful and influential to be able to suppress information. And then once their guy is in, they're like, okay, we can go ahead and put this story out there. It's already out there anyways, and we need something, you know? They need some drama. They can't just, if Trump is out, what are they going to do, right? So they just go to the next story, you know? But it was clearly could have been blown up before the election and was completely ignored. 100%. I mean, that's obvious. And it's just like they've done with the fraud. Dude, we'll probably find out after Biden's inaugurated, we'll probably find out a bunch of stuff about fraud that, well, we already found it out, but it'll probably come out in the mainstream, a bunch of different things about fraud that prove it. And it'll be stuff that we're like, we were saying that 6 months ago, you know?
Right.
That's the vibe I'm getting. And that seems to be the pattern. And I trust patterns. I mean, it plays out time and time again. So,
yeah, I wonder how that wonder what the Constitution says about that scenario. Like,
which one?
You know, say,
exactly.
Fraud comes out.
Oh,
you know, what do they
proven? after he's inaugurated.
After he's inaugurated, do they say, "Oh, well, I guess that means his vice president becomes president"?
No, I think that's essentially a part of their plan too. They're like, hey, even if Biden goes down, like we got Kamala in there next, and then I think it's what Pelosi. She's going to stay on as speaker for at least the first 2 years. She said that she's going to give it up. She's like 80-something years old. Yeah. She says she's given up the Speaker of the House, but she's in line after Kamala.
So she'd be vice president, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Or no. Kamala would become president, and I think she gets to appoint a vice president. Yeah.
Interesting.
Don't quote me on that, but that's what I think. Yeah. So we're both leaning towards that. We're both leaning towards Biden getting inaugurated because every happening that's been happening hasn't happened, basically, right? Every time there's a happening, you're like, oh, this is it, dude. I mean, when that Georgia video came out with the table and the ballots, you're like, there it is, dude.
There it is.
We got them. Obvious fraud right there. You can't legally count ballots with no observers. Yeah. That's just the law. It doesn't matter if they're legit ballots or not. Can't count them without observers. Then they did the whole COVID. Oh, man, there's like, even as I get into this stuff, there's so many freaking thoughts going through my head to tie it all together because the whole thing is a scam through and through. The COVID, the election, politics in general, like they all work in cahoots. They orchestrate this thing. Like COVID was the perfect cover for fraud so that you couldn't put poll watchers watching the counters. They had to be 6 feet away. In some cases, there was like barricades they had to stand behind. Like, you can't see that ballot regardless of where, so why? Well, we wouldn't have done it that way in pictures, but this year we have COVID. So you have to be 6 feet apart. You have to wear a mask. And we have to be spread out, So you're not even able to.
Why not have the observers in hazmat suits?
Right. With oxygen flow, full tanks, everything.
Full tanks, just like over the shoulder.
With with a little alcohol spray canister. When they come up to you, they're like, oh, I'll spray you down. So look over your shoulder, see what you're doing. All right, carry on, sir. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's that deadly, that dangerous of a disease, probably they should have, right? I mean, so the whole thing is this like perfect conglomerate of scams coming together to... I mean, is it China, dude? China?
I mean, initially I thought that it was possible that the U.S. released COVID-19 in China.
Whoa.
And then like
they kind of did,
and then blamed it on China.
Right. Reversal.
That sort of thing. Like, hey, these China virus, all this stuff. And then, but now it does seem like it could have been a possibility of like a discussion between the. You got Rudy Giuliani. He's talking before some council, probably in Michigan or somewhere. Right. He's just like, hey, I don't think that like the Democratic Party is corrupt. I just feel like there's certain individuals that are high up in power that are corrupt, and they've done some things here. So there could have been some of those people, right, that had, say, a meeting with China, and then
like a Fauci type individual?
Yeah, it's like a Fauci individual or something like that. Somebody was like, they're having a discussion with China, and China's like, well, hey, we know we have this virus we've been working on in this lab over in Wuhan for a while. Doesn't kill too many people. Kills mostly fat people and people over 80. And I mean, that could be enough to do what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was their idea, whatever. Right. And then they'll just release it, months before we'll ever report it. And, it's speculated that I was with the U.S. like in November or December.
Right.
Before, and then we didn't really even know it was serious until March.
March, yeah. So I heard that Fauci, there's some ties with the Wuhan laboratory.
Oh, wow.
Where there was like millions of dollars in grants that were issued for virus research to that Wuhan. Which, I mean, come on, dude. It's just like the election stuff. Why are you telling me that the virus originated in Wuhan, China, and then there's a virology lab in Wuhan, China, when you look it up? And it's like, and it's also the same lab that's gotten millions of dollars in grants. I mean, it's all too... It's classic, dude. You're pissing on my leg. You're telling me it's raining. Like, it's right there in my face, and you're telling me not to believe it. And I just don't see how that makes any sense at all to and they want to, and we're supposed to just be like, well, I mean, they wouldn't do that. It wouldn't be that. But I mean, the truth is stranger than fiction, man.
It's
That's
stranger than fiction.
like that's a cliche for a reason. Like people write off cliches like they're just, oh, that's just a cliche. No, a cliche is like a deep truth that was so true that it became repeated over and over and over again. And one of them is that the truth is stranger than fiction. So I'm sorry, when stuff starts lining up, you don't just write it off and say, oh, that's just coincidence. It's like, no, you need to look into it and get to the bottom of it. But of course, they're not going to, because it would be their ass. So you're just going to sweep it under the rug and say, no, don't look behind the curtain. Everything's on the up and up. That's just happenstance. That's circumstance. That's consequential. It's not what you think it is, So, and we'll have to look that up. I mean, maybe I could Google it now, but I don't think I could find the information quickly enough to be productive about the Wuhan lab. But I'm pretty sure they got money. And regardless, so where are you at on that? You think it came from China then? Is it a biological weapon? I mean, what's the deal? We're also banned for this too. I mean, if you talk about COVID, you're banned. So it's like, but the only fun things to talk about are COVID and election fraud. So I
think it's definitely like a weaponized virus.
Yeah.
They probably took one of the original COVIDs and let it mutate, and then experimented with what the effects were. And then this is a mutation that they were like, they kind of liked it. They're like, okay, 2-week incubation period.
Right.
It affects people harshly if they have chronic inflammation. What country has the most chronic inflammation? The United States.
Bingo.
Seems like a really good virus for them, and it wouldn't hurt most of the world.
Apparently not, because Wuhan, I think I said this in the last episode, but Wuhan was partying it up, dude. Halloween, they were slamming and jamming, no mask, shoulder to shoulder, EDM concerts, the whole thing, sweating on each other.
Because they probably know that like most of those kids don't have chronic inflammation. They'll be fine,
Yeah, their diet just doesn't lend itself to that.
Yeah.
So you think it was kind of? I agree with you. I think it was a biologically developed. I don't think it's a naturally occurring phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think what else would you do in a virology lab besides try to see? I mean, obviously, maybe you run some tests on existing stuff and whatever. But once the money comes in, of course, there's somebody who's like, "Hey, man, let me see what you guys can come up with. What we could do with that." Then you got Bill Gates. Bill Gates had his whatever. What was it? The not Unity. That's Unity 2020 is freaking Brett Weinstein. He had they had like their convention where they talked about a pandemic and all that stuff. Just look it up. I don't know the name, but it's
like
pretty
2018 or something.
Yeah, it's like really easy to find the information where they're talking about a pandemic and how it would spread and what we would have to do. And like next thing you know, boom, COVID-19 shows up and they're telling us all. And which another thing about COVID, if you want to go back to like what I said earlier about the dong pics on 4chan, if you went to 4chan when COVID was coming out, it was a mix of threads that were telling, that people were like, this is the end, like this is the big virus that kills everybody. And at the time, I remember looking at those and being like, okay, I guess maybe it could be that bad, but it didn't feel like it was going to be that. And of course it didn't turn out being that, but that's just an example of why you can't get your information like from any, you just have to use discernment, man. No matter what, you have to be willing to look at stuff and use discernment. You can't just read a slide thread on 4chan and think, this is going to kill us all, this Chinese virus. And you can't also just believe that something is a nothing burger because you're being told to ignore it, But you need to take both of those points of view in and find the truth somewhere there in the middle or wherever it is, above or below, whichever one could be more extreme or less extreme, or could be right there in the middle. But you have to have discernment of all this information, which is why you need to collect multiple pieces of it, whether it's on like the troll site or the sellout site or CNN or whatever. You need the pieces to put the puzzle together, in my opinion. And if you're not, I'm not saying everyone has to pursue it.
I think you should be aware of the pieces.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. You just need the awareness, man.
Like, aware that there's pieces out there that, hey, you could put them in a puzzle and it makes an interesting picture, but hey, maybe they'll rearrange in a different but to know, hey, yeah, there's a virology lab in Wuhan, and
Yeah.
that's the epicenter of where it started,
Right.
and all these things, and
It's a little suspicious.
they happen to have funding, and the CDC happens to have the coronavirus patented for some
Right,
reason,
right.
which is weird because
Yeah.
you can't patent a naturally occurring virus, and it's illegal to create a virus to patent, and
Right.
so it's you. It's wrong either way, and so that's one of those things. It's like so like, all these pieces together, just like that's messed up,
So messed up.
So, but what do you got here? You got crossing the Rubicon with Caesar.
Okay, yeah, I was going to get to this at some point. So
Okay.
I didn't know where the term crossing the, because a lot of people are calling for Don, Zion Don, DJT, Jamarcus Trunk, as they call him, to cross the Rubicon. And that apparently is like a colloquialism. And where it comes from is Julius Caesar started, well, let's just read this one little excerpt here from Wikipedia, the most reliable source on the web. Crossing the Rubicon River on January 10th precipitated the Roman Civil War, which ultimately led to Caesar becoming dictator and the rise of the imperial era of Rome. And Caesar was given a governorship over a certain region, but the Rubicon, which was the river, in that section of the world, I'm not even sure what section of the world it is. Let's go small cams and see if we can.
Is that Italy?
I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, right? Rome. So the Rubicon River, and he wasn't to cross into the territory, but he crossed it anyways with his army. And then the other colloquialism, the die has been cast, he said. As in, now I've crossed the Rubicon, I've rolled the dice, we'll see what happens. Well, he ended up being dictator of the whole shebang, dude.
Right.
Because he was willing to cross the Rubicon. So people are pushing for Trump, a small or large, I mean, maybe a relatively large segment of Trump supporters are saying, just do it, Don. Just cross the freaking Rubicon, dude. Just scorched earth these MFers already, man. You were supposed to do it. You still haven't done it. They've done fraud in our face and told us to eat it and suck it. Okay. So it's time to fight back. And just because it's not the right thing to do, or we need peaceful transfer of power or whatever, it's too late, man. It's too late for peaceful transfer of power and all that. Like that. So they're saying, hey, time to cross the Rubicon, man. I mean,
wow.
Just go for it and change history.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the Abraham Lincoln, all the other reliable source, Wikipedia was talking about that Lincoln's, what was it? Lincoln coming into power the Lincoln election was the primary catalyst of the American
the catalyst
Civil War.
of the Civil War,
Unlike,
and that's what crossing the Rubicon was, the catalyst of the Roman Civil War.
Yeah, and so that's like that's pretty interesting because I think they had laws where like the army couldn't be within Rome distance or some shit. And so, but and it's interesting also that it's January 10th is when that took place. January 10th.
Whoa,
is
nice.
Not that far away.
You're right. Okay, I hadn't, and the inauguration is the 20th, but
20th.
Apparently January 6th is the date where everything is like locked in, right?
Locked in.
And then the event happens 2 weeks later. He's actually inaugurated. So, I mean, honestly, so this takes us full circle back around to what I wrote down here as my first thing that I was going to talk about. This is what I was telling you on the phone. Like, that's why I've sort of taken the black pill, but if you go on Urban Dictionary and look up the black pill, it like references incels and stuff like that. And it's
nice.
like, okay, that's not what I mean by the black pill. Okay, that's not my truth. All right. Okay. What I mean by the black pill is that it's not full nihilism where I'm like, nothing matters. It's just is like, you've taken the red pill. You're on the conservative side, whatever you believe in, patriotism, freedom, Bill of Rights, all that stuff. Well, when Jamarcus Trunk refuses to like scorched earth the enemy, you just start to feel like, maybe you're a part of it, dude. Maybe no one is willing, probably myself included. I mean, what am I doing? As far I'm not in that world necessarily. I'm just a peon out here, living in serfdom, trying to live my life. But regardless, let's just talk about them. I'm about to check out of the whole thing. And not in like a suicidal way. I mean, I'm about to check out of the whole political sphere. Like, what's even going on there, dude? What even is the point of it? Because if you asked me 3 months ago, I would say, well, what the point of it is these are our elected representatives. They can change laws. They influence the laws of the country that then come down the line and influence us. So that's what the point of voting is. That's what the point of, putting your opinion out there and trying to have some influence over your elected officials is, because otherwise you get squashed and ignored. And what if Biden taxes guns? Whatever. Like, that's why I don't want Biden. I don't want him to do things that affect my life, in a negative way.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by the black pill, is like the nihilism of like politics isn't even worth it. And there's almost no point in engaging in it. It's like political nihilism. It's all for naught. They're all on the same team. They're two sides of the same coin. They just want to sway one way or the other as the tides go, right, so that they can keep the ping pong game going back and forth, Yeah. Go ahead.
That's kind of one of my thoughts, was that, both parties have, whether it's like the Trilateral Commission or the Council on Foreign Relations,
right,
that they all have people in these in the Democratic and Republican Party,
right,
and those are the ones that are actually making all the decisions. And so it's tough because you kind of look at it that way, and it seems
right,
like that's what's actually playing out.
It does seem that way.
Is that people are getting played, and this whole QAnon stuff, that I was looking into that, and that seemed that sent off so many red flags in my mind that because these people were drinking the Kool-Aid
hard
Kool-Aid.
That caught a lot of traction. The QAnon stuff.
QAnon stuff was like, that was so much Kool-Aid that was like, what are you guys are believing what? I mean, it was like, it was like Donald Trump is like, anointed by God, that this dude has, been touched by an angel, and that all this, and he's gonna relieve the world's troubles. Like,
right,
we're gonna live in a golden age here in a second, and all this stuff that's going on is just merely smoke and mirrors, and so that the evil can be brought out into the light.
Trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Trust the plan. And it was just like,
it's 4D chess going on behind the scenes. We're not seeing it. It's coded. It's cryptic. Oh, look at this tweet. Like, look what he said in this tweet. And like, you pick out one word, and you're like, you know what that means.
Yeah. What vaccines? What do you mean? Whenever he says vaccine, is code for he's taking down big pharma. And I was like,
the vaccines, dude. I forgot about that,
dude.
You just triggered me. I'm triggered.
He's triggered. You're like, that's code for taking down big pharma. No, big pharma's getting paid right now. People are buying stock in big pharma.
Yeah.
And they're,
who's buying stock in big pharma? Kelly Loeffler. She's buying stock in big pharma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can't wait to vote for those two.
I heard
Republicans.
she
had a picture of Chairman Mao in her living room, because that's what I saw on the internet.
I heard she's got a very good stockbroker that's just merely intuitive.
Yeah.
That he knows when to cash out.
I mean, look. Look, I mean, if you're on, what are you supposed to do if you're on a committee or in a position where they're like, yeah, we haven't told the American people yet, but we're about to get slammed with this virus that's probably going to shut down the economy, right?
It's going to wreck our economy.
I'm not saying they came in and said it like that, but if that's the vibe they're getting, that's the intel you're getting, and you have all these investments, what would anyone do in that situation? Yeah. Like, of course you're going to move some money around because you're like, that doesn't sound good. Now, it's still shady because it's like, well, we're your constituents and you represent us.
Some would say it was illegal.
I guess, but you have to. So I think election fraud's illegal. Like, you have to prove it in a court of law, man. That's the nature of this country. So I agree. Dude, she's a stiff as far as I'm concerned. I mean, she's like not she's just not. They're just not one of us, dude. We're just normal people down here at the bottom, and they want to live these elite lives.
Speaking of normal people, this dude David Straight was saying that these.
Shout out David Straight.
Shout out to David Straight.
You conspiracy theorist, you.
Yeah, he's like YouTube. If you want to watch the most unquality videos and sound ever made on YouTube, then
Are they low quality
as
far as production goes?
It's like you want to listen to what he's saying, but he's whistling like there's seashells by the seashore.
That's
and
awesome.
You're like, God, please just give me the information. This is painful.
Hurry, sum it up.
And there's like hours and hours of it,
Yeah.
and it's like, but some of the stuff he talks about, he's like, these people have diplomatic immunity. That's why they never go to jail.
Yeah.
And he's like, because they're not sovereign, because they're sovereign. And if you call yourself a citizen, he's like going into all this different like terminology.
The sovereign citizen. I've looked into that.
Like,
a little
you can't
bit
call
more.
him. Yeah, if you call yourself a sovereign citizen, it's an oxymoron. And
Right.
it's like if you're a citizen, you don't have the same rights as being sovereign. And
Right.
he's just kind of discussing all these different things. He's like, and this is why Hillary Clinton hasn't gone to jail, because she understands these things. And when Bill Clinton was before Congress or whatever, he was playing with a dollar bill, and like he was like pleading the fifth, and he was just like,
Is there video of that?
Yeah, I think there's video of that. I don't
Can we
know.
look that up?
Let's see if we can look that up.
So-
Bill Clinton before Congress playing with a dollar bill.
So he testified. Was this Monica Lewinsky?
Yeah, Monica Lewinsky.
All right, I'm going to start with YouTube. We're just going to type it straight in. Clinton plays with dollar bill. Let's just see if there's anything out there. David Straight, you out there? Clinton plays the saxophone.
Clinton plays a saxophone.
Yeah. I don't even think he could play sax, dude. I think they just
how about
dubbed over it.
Clinton before
Bill Clinton testifies.
testimony, Senate.
Senate
There we go.
testimony. Okay. And you're saying, is it this video? What's he look like? Is it with the AP logo?
He's got to be in a chair.
Dude, they memory hold it so hard. All right, it's gone. It's gone. It's memory hold. You can't find it. Ooh, 1998 Donald Trump. No, that's cool.
Have you ever gone back and watched some of the what was his TV show? The Apprentice.
The Apprentice? I used to watch The Apprentice when it came on. 'cause
No,
we
but
didn't
have you
cable.
gone back to watch it now though?
No, I haven't gone back and watched it.
It's interesting.
It was a decent show at the time. I mean,
It's funny that to go
as
back
far
and-
as over-the-air TV went.
I mean, he references Rudy Giuliani and stuff, and
He does what, Rudy Giuliani?
he references.
Oh,
like,
references Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, he's like,
Oh, I see.
and all this. I mean, like they're pals back then, so it was interesting. I didn't know they were such best friends. I'm like, shit, you guys were like best friends forever.
Well, I mean, Trump was a big-time developer in New York, and Rudy was the mayor.
Yeah.
Which that reminds me, dude. Now, one thing I will say about the Teflon Don is when you go back and look at his videos going all the way back to the 80s and
Right.
interviews and stuff, he says a lot of the same stuff. Like
sure.
his principles, even
Yeah.
though he was a registered Democrat, his principles have mostly been solid throughout his entire career. And he's also, I was telling my wife this, he's also not, Trump is an executive decision maker. He's not an ideologue guy who's like, I have these ideas, I'm going to implement them. So like with the virus, that which I think his biggest failure, in my opinion. Now, it's so funny because other people will tell you the opposite of this. I feel like his biggest failure was taking the virus too seriously because he didn't take it seriously at first, and then he like ramped it up to very serious levels. And there's other people that say, no, that's why he lost the election, because he didn't take it serious enough. And, people died and whatever. And it's like, dude, go look at the flu deaths and what's the other deaths? Heart disease, way down more than ever before. And the COVID is way up. Okay, so in reality, like if you look at I think it was like 2.5 million usually die per year of different causes.
I don't think anybody died of the flu this year.
No, we're right on pace for basically a normal amount of deaths per year, which sucks. You hate to see people die, but they're going to die every year a certain amount, and we're pretty much on pace. So he stuck to his principles. I think one of his biggest failings was taking the virus too seriously, because since he's an executive decision maker, he let people like Fauci, Birx, who were in all these press conferences, he's like, well, look, you're the director of the National Institute of Health. Like, you're a lifetime doctor. I'm not. Like, he recognizes that in himself, but he thinks if you give me the information, I can make a good decision, and I'll make the decision based on all the input you give me. He's a round table guy, dude. We sit down at the round table, give me 5 experts, give me all their opinions. and I'm going to formulate the way forward off of that.
Right.
And he buys into this Washington political. He literally said, "Drain the swamp," then went to the swamp and listened to people in the swamp to decide what to do about the swamp. It's like, dude, you should have been bringing in outsiders, unheard of people that had successful careers in other industries, people that had principle, family, man, very important in my opinion that people have family if they're going to be elected officials. Like if you don't have kids, I don't even know if you should be in a very high position of power because you got no skin in the game. You can make laws that affect people and you're not
for generations.
Yeah, and you're not thinking about how's this going to set my kids up? Now it's a double-edged sword because then there's nepotism, and you could be doing underhanded shit that does set only your kids up. But to get back to my point, he took too much advice from the swamp. This guy appointed John Bolton, dude.
Yeah, and
What are you doing?
Been in his position for
Fauci gave everybody AIDS. I'm going to say it right here on YouTube. I'm going to look right into put me on the camera. Fauci gave everyone AIDS in 1980. Okay,
Oh my God.
Ban me. I don't care. I said it. He gave everyone AIDS.
Yeah,
He did it.
He's been in office
It's a fact. Wikipedia.
since
Look
the
it up.
80s.
Yeah. No, he was in the same position
Same position since
in the 80s. Director of the National
So-
Institute of Health.
So definitely don't listen to this guy. Like if I was President Trump, like, okay, how long have you been doing your job? How long have you been doing your job since the 80s? No, I'm not listening to you.
Yeah, okay, no, yeah. I agree. And but he didn't do that. He did the opposite. He's like, how long you been doing yours? Oh, since the 80s? Okay, well, you might have some knowledge. It's like, no, he probably does have some knowledge, but he clearly is a swamp creature, or he
Yeah.
wouldn't have been here. Why has he not moved? Well, I mean, I'm
Dude,
sorry, was this
I
his
would,
dream
I would have
job?
my own intelligence task force. Like, I need this guy vetted. I need this guy vetted. Like, where's his money been going? What's he been involved in?
I also wonder
Yeah.
if just everyone just backstabbed Trump left and right all the time, constantly.
Dude, he had moles in his office, and he had people that would go in, look at his memos, and then report that to the news.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I would be planting fake shit in my memos,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Right.
just so you could
I think
find it.
I think there were a couple times he did that. You know, it's the old, what do they call that technique where you tell three different people three different versions?
Yeah.
And whichever one gets leaked, you're like, cool, you're the only person I told that version of events.
You're the mole.
Yeah, the mole.
Yeah, but
So-
he's been firing people to left and right.
So it's so convoluted, dude. It's such a convoluted situation because you, on the one hand, you're like, why are you appointing people from the swamp when you're supposed to be draining the swamp? Okay, we should be getting only outsiders for everything. I don't care where you pull them from. They just need to be on board with the platform that your supporters voted for, and they need to not have held, significant positions that could influence them or their future of their career. But he didn't do that. He was taking recommendations, and the people recommending it, what I feel like in my mind, what I picture is that they're like, oh yeah, appoint that guy. And then they go to dinner with their friends and laugh about it. They're like, I think he's actually going to appoint him. Can you guys believe that I duped him into that? And not that Trump's not intelligent. I think he's very intelligent, and I don't care what anybody says. You don't get to that level in life without a certain level or type of intelligence. He may not be an intellectual, but he has a special gift for advancing himself in the world that we live in. And go try to do it yourself is what I say to anyone who talks trash on Trump, and really even the rest of the swamp. It's like, but it's a lot easier to do it. It's a lot easier to climb through corruption than it is to climb the right way, right?
Yeah. Did you watch that? What was the movie? It was it was a mafia cop movie. And then
with Alessandra loves that movie.
It was Matt Damon and
Yeah, it had
Leonardo
everybody.
DiCaprio
And Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Who is he? Nicholson? Nicholas? I never know, dude.
Nicholas is the golfer.
That's man. It's on the tip of my tongue. The Departed.
Departed.
There it is. Yeah,
So-
I've seen it.
so
Mark
the-
Wahlberg.
Yeah. So, Jack Nicholson had a mole inside
Yeah, the police department,
police
or
department
whatever.
or whatever.
Yeah,
that he had raised since he was a kid.
The Departed.
And Donald Trump has been wanting to be a president for decades.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Like,
He's been asked the question
he was-
many times.
Yes, many times. Oprah's like, way back when was like,
Did you ever run for president?
And he's like, I thought about it.
Yeah.
And, like he could have been grooming people for his administration with his money and influence.
Wow.
And been like, you're going to be in the FBI.
See, now this is why you listen to the AETV podcast broadcast, because that's something I haven't ever heard anyone say at all. That's like one of the most unique ideas I've heard. This dude, you're exactly right. He was obviously planning to run eventually.
Yeah.
He could have been building his cabinet the entire time. And then when he stepped foot in the Oval Office, he wouldn't have to be like, oh, who do we appoint then? How's John Bolton sound? It's like, what? John Bolton, Bill Barr?
Yeah.
Screw these guys, dude.
Screw these guys.
They've already been in these positions. They've already done this stuff before.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. That makes me even more like...
Dude, he could have even had an all-black cabinet, record-breaking all-black cabinet.
Yeah.
And
he should have appointed Obama to something, dude. Just brought Obama in on it.
And then the person that he's got in the FBI or CIA, like, all right, can you hang around this guy?
Yeah. Keep an eye on him.
Yeah,
Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer. He should have appointed Obama, Hillary, Biden. He should have had them all in his cabinet, dude. Oh,
that would have
man.
made the conservatives lose their mind, though. They'd
Well,
be like, no.
I mean, even if, obviously you can't do that, but if you give them any power, just like Hillary did as Secretary of State, she did so many freaking shady, underhanded deals in Africa and around the world.
Benghazi.
I mean, look into it, dude.
Yeah.
Look into it, okay? Because she was freaking scamming all over the place. So even if you did do the keep your enemies closer, even if you did do that plan, like, you still are giving them the power, and they're going to use whatever you give them to manipulate. I mean, I don't know, dude. I just don't know. I'm really at the point where I'm like, it's all a fugazi, probably always has been. Yeah. We don't even know the history of the world. We just know what's been presented to us.
Sure.
And everyone's like, oh, no, it's written down in books. Read it. It's like, have you read the books? Have you looked at it? No.
Have you looked at alternate source material?
Have you even read what you think the history is, or did you just look it up on Wikipedia, man? And how do you know? And now I'm sure there's semblances of truth, but, dude, humanity had an oral history for, the majority percentage of time that we've existed.
Oh, majority.
Like, we're not a written history culture until recently, so...
Absolutely.
You got to look. The World's Fair thing really blew my mind, dude.
Let's look at that.
Let me see if I can bring up anything on the World's Fair.
That sounds insane to me.
So what? Go ahead. While I look this up, what are you saying?
Well, I'm listening to an audiobook called America Before by the famous Graham Hancock, alternative. I was an archaeologist, I guess you'd say.
Right.
He just looks at alternative views of history.
Oh, yeah, Graham Hancock?
And he looks, he's been on Joe Rogan so many times.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan talks to him forever, so he loves him.
Yeah.
And
those are good podcasts when Graham
Hancock
Hancock is on.
But he brings up stuff like Serpent Mound over in Ohio. There's alignments to solstices and sunrise and all this stuff, and that dates back to what looks like 11,000 BC, that there was a culture sophisticated enough to make these alignments and to make a monument as big as it is, and for it to be aligned. And then in and of itself, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but when you look at other monuments around the world,
right,
that are also aligned to these solstices and with such accuracy, you tend to think that there could have been a worldwide culture pre-flood.
Yeah.
That created all these things. And then we give credit to different people. Even Egyptologists, they're like, oh yeah, that was early Egyptian empire that created the Sphinx. And
right.
When there's evidence of water erosion and there's water erosion that could have been around 11,000 BC, when that was the last time there was that much rainfall in that area. Yep. And plus it was completely covered by sand for years.
Right.
It completely covered with sand.
Well, that's because the dunes are ever shifting, dude.
Ever shifting.
That's why it was covered in so deep of sand, because it happened so fast. Yeah. So don't think that it took thousands of years to do that.
Yeah.
It probably took hundreds because the sand moves so fast. And that's the type of stuff with everything, dude. That's like it's right in your face, but they're like, no. I mean, read the history on it. You can't deny the history. It's written down. It's words. So look at this. Like, this is the Chicago Tribune, and this. So let me get at the theory as I understand. I got to look way more into this, right?
Okay.
But as I understand it, they were having World's Fairs as exhibitions of
Technology.
the great
stuff?
nations of the world, our technology, our capability for building and things like that. Okay, so what was happening was they're having these exhibitions, and the theory is that they weren't exhibitions at all. The history is written as that they were exhibitions and all the pictures and stuff, but really it was sort of a cover story for destroying the evidence of the civilizations that were already here in America before, because what they were doing, if we look right here in the Chicago Tribune, now I just word searched the word destroyed in this article. Okay, so while most of the grand buildings and monuments were destroyed, smaller elements of the World's Fair have withstood the past century. Grand buildings and monuments were destroyed. Why would you build them? Why would you build them? Why would you build grand buildings and monuments?
I mean, screw the buildings.
Do you know how much? I mean, okay.
What about the monuments? Like, what kind of monuments?
Okay, 1889, dude. 1889. 1893. These are some of the dates I'm seeing. You're telling me they built grand buildings and monuments before the automobile. Mm-hmm. So what were they bringing in, these giant slabs of stone and granite on horse and buggy? And then at the end of an exhibition, they were like, okay, destroy it. Does that make any sense at all? Like, on the surface. Now, I'm not saying I got a bulletproof argument here or anything like that.
Right.
I'm just saying on its face, if you look at it like that, why? Why would you not? When we build things, when we build a stadium for our team,
right,
it's a 20-year, 30-year investment. Now, don't even get me started. That's a complete scam to do on the taxpayer of the cities they build them in, that billionaires build stadiums and then get massive tax relief. And basically the city and the taxpayers pay for their stadiums to be built because it's going to bring in tax revenue in the future, though. It offsets. But do we destroy that stadium, dude, when our team moves? Or, like, do we build a stadium so that our team can play one season and then we destroy it because we said, well, we just wanted them to exhibit their sport talent. And now that they have, we're going to destroy it and we move on. We'll see you next season and we're going to build a new place for them to do their exhibition. So why would you build grand building and monuments almost 200 years ago now that must have taken, I mean, how much manpower, dude? Who knows? I mean, and so and no one thinks about the World Fair, man, but I'm getting very interested in, like, and this is when I started doubting. This was one of the key factors to me even doubting history at all. And I'm not saying I don't believe in history, and obviously but the ability to rewrite it for the current time. I mean, what are we here for? 60, 80, 100 years? You know, there's this constant turnover. So if, you know, grandma and great grandma didn't tell you how things were back in the 1900s, back in the early the early 20th century, if they didn't tell you how it was, what do you got? Documents. All you can do is go research. And how do you know that the documents are accurate to what it really was? Like, you don't have the firsthand account. Now extrapolate that over a few generations, and you can edit and slowly tweak that information to sort of give whatever sort of cover or narrative you want to present. So I've got to look. I want to dig through this article some more and see what kind of actual monuments and grand buildings there were. New York, while surrounded by a white city of building. Wait, hold on. I want to
see if Graham Hancock talks about it. I'm looking at the table of contents of this America Before book.
Let's read a paragraph.
Okay.
Let's read a paragraph here. In the course of its 6-month run, the remarkable World's Fair this is cool. Drew 27 million visitors to Jackson Park, I believe. Is that Chicago, I think? Attendees sampled new foods, marveled at new technologies, including the zipper, and listened to music transmitted live via telephone from New York, all while surrounded by a white city of buildings envisioned by Chicago's architectural legend, Daniel Burnham. So you're telling me they went to the world? We're going to look up the White City, dude. The White City. White City. Let's put World's Fair in there, too. So you're telling me they were surrounded by a white city when they did all this, and that doesn't exist anymore? Why would you? The Chicago World's Fair in 1893 is one of the city's most famous events, often called the fair that changed America. The massive event introduced more than 27 million. We already know 27 million people. Okay. And then it just conveniently, I guess it just conveniently burned. What, dude? Look at this. Look at this architecture. What are you talking about, dude? Where is this? Okay. May to October 27th. This is in Chicago. Look at this. That looks freaking Roman Greek as hell right there, dude. I mean, that was the centerpiece of the fair's White City at Graham. Oh, I'm sorry. The people at home aren't seeing this on YouTube. The centerpiece, okay, dominated by the Republic, 65-foot gold leaf plaster figure at the acclaimed sculptor, Daniel Chester French. So he built you're telling me they built a 65-foot monument for a 6-month World's Fair and then was like, okay, yeah, tear that bitch down. Like, we don't need that. The fair's over. Why would you build 65? What are these buildings, these giant arches and this Greek architecture? I don't know anything about it. I have no idea. I'm just pointing out some things that seem interesting.
It'd be interesting.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. Today, a 24-foot scale replica of the Gold Lady. They're like, you know what? Why don't we throw a little 24-foot scale replica out there for him, of that 65-footer that we destroyed, I guess, because the fair was over.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense to do things on such a grand scale, and then when you're done with it, I mean, according to the Chicago Tribune, destroy grand building. It said destroyed. It said they destroyed the grand buildings and monuments.
I mean, I've never seen this. There's not an updated picture of this, obviously.
Yeah. And how much manpower would it take to put these things together in the late 1800s? I mean, this is I haven't really gone down this rabbit hole, but this is what is drawing me towards the rabbit hole of like, dude, what all in history is even true? Like the whole idea of Native Americans, who we maybe would call Indians today. Don't ban me, but go ahead. Were they the only people that were here before? Or did maybe some white Vikings come over and maybe some like black people from South America? Or who's to say that maybe some black people didn't come over from like Europe and Africa on ships themselves?
Shit, now you're making me think the Romans were over here.
Yes, dude, this architecture is all over the world. Like, you don't know that, like, maybe what I'm wondering is, like, was the Tower of Babel something, dude, where they were building architect? Was it an actual tower, or was it like a unity all over the world where they had spread out and everyone was building similar? Why is the architecture why is the architecture so similar in all these cities all over the world? Field Museum, 1893, Ferris wheel. Let's look up the Field Museum today. Chicago Field Museum, current day. Okay, is it there? Does it exist? Here it is. We're getting some images here. I mean, that definitely looks Greek in its architecture. All right, those aren't the same thing. We're not seeing the same thing here, but yeah, it's very, very curious, dude. They got a lot of pictures and paintings of what they say it looked like. I mean, take a look at that sucker, dude. I know we were just looking at this picture, but look at this painting of it. That's what it looked like. You would build all that out and not leave that till the current day. I mean, that looks monumental. We don't even build buildings like that now, that sprawling and like ornate with columns and stone. Oh, but in the 19th century, they were putting this together, horse and buggy, no problem. And somehow 27 million people traveled and saw it over a 6-month period. How? We didn't have airplanes. Were they traveling by train? So you filtered 27 million people through? I don't know. I got a lot of questions, dude. and I don't have any answers at all. And I'm not really even a history guy, honestly. What other World's Fairs?
The New York World's Fair.
There was one?
Yeah, but it was in the 60s.
The 1960s?
Yeah, let's see.
What was the oldest World's Fair? Okay. What was the first one? That's what I want to know. Does anyone out there know? This is why we should live stream. We could get from the chat could tell us. Okay, best known First World Expo was held in the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park, London, United Kingdom, 1851. Under the title Great Exhibition of the Works of Industry of All Nations. Okay, now that you would want to believe because, okay, Egyptian relics at the 1851 World's Fair in London. What? How did they get? Oh, good. Pinterest. Yeah. Whoa, look at this. Crystal Palace Park.
That I can
Dude,
believe,
there's a
like,
lot to look into here.
I have thought about.
These look fake as hell, by the way.
I have thought about the Egyptian culture being like the surviving culture of a worldwide civilization that was pre-flood.
Was there? When you say pre-flood, what are we talking about?
We're talking about like
biblical flood.
Biblical flood,
and so that actually occurred.
That actually occurred.
Okay, and
recorded by
lay it on
other
me.
civilizations.
Right.
Like South America has their own flood myth.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you're saying that there were surviving civilizations after the flood, like they were advanced. Right. You give me the theory. Lay it on me. So, what's the flood theory?
What's weird about the flood theory is that there's warnings in the myths. Like Noah was warned by God that the flood was coming.
Yep.
In South America, I think it was Quetzalcoatl was like the flying serpent, who warned the South American people, hey, there's a flood coming. You guys need to, I think he told them to retreat into the mountains. And that's where they hid. There's still ancient cultures in the mountains there, in the Andes. And other civilizations were told to go underground.
Right.
Noah just happened to build a boat.
Right. So the idea is that there was, regardless of the myth, there's always this concept of like
someone like a guide saying, "Hey, there's a flood coming. You guys need to prepare." And then, so there was apparently there's evidence of a worldwide civilization, but there's also a lot of it's been wiped out.
Right.
There's maps of Antarctica without any ice on it.
Whoa.
I mean, and that was before Antarctica was even discovered.
Okay.
Right.
From other cultures, you're saying. Somebody has these maps.
All right. So you could Google when was Antarctica discovered.
Good question. Let's look. When was? We're gonna get to the bottom of this. Antarctica discovered. Give me the Wikipedia answer. 1820.
All right, and then look up
another January date too, dude. January 27th. Is there something in the universe that makes us start looking into all this stuff right around the same time? That like, why do the dates always line up like this? Like, was I interested in Antarctica in May? Like, no. But now that January's around the corner, I'm like, wait a second.
Go to now search Google Images.
Okay.
Just go ahead. No, like you could just take all that off.
Okay.
Type in Peri. That's P-I-R-I. Space R-E-I-S map.
Right here. Let's bring this up for the people. Okay, people, take a look at this. Okay. Take a look at this. Who was this guy? A map maker, or is this?
It's a map maker. A descent like so.
Peri map 1513.
Map after map, and so they're like
historic mysteries.
They're looking at. So apparently, the original Peri Reis map was out of the Library of Alexandria, that was burned down.
That was burned down, probably by complete accident, right?
No, that was
exactly.
That was definitely burned on purpose,
right?
And that could be because they wanted to tell a different story about how history occurred.
Yes. And let me pause you right there. What would stop anybody from doing that? Like, human nature doesn't change.
No.
They wanted to tell a different story back then,
Yeah.
and they want to tell a different story now today because they want to manipulate those who are at the bottom to serve those who are at the top in any way they can.
Sure.
That's the way I see it.
Mm.
So we need to look up the Vinland map, real or fake. So, of course, they list this under historic mysteries, right? The 1513, this map, the Piri Reis. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Piri Reis.
Piri Reis
Yeah.
map of 1513.
Created by an Ottoman Turkish cartographer.
The map has garnered attention because it appears to show an ice-free Antarctic coastline. If that's the case, now this is what this is, then someone discovered and mapped Antarctica a century before its reported discovery in 1773, which Google told me it was discovered in 1820.
That's when white people discovered it.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
So that's the only important discovery, obviously.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently Google.
They're like, well, look, that guy wore a turban, so we're
And
not
it's-
necessarily going to
he's
give
not
him credit
quite
for the
white.
discovery.
It's like,
Charles Hapgood, look at this guy. Charles Hapgood, he discovered some stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
look, he's the Hapgood effect. Charles Hapgood probably came up with the best explanation to explain it, and they're like, that sounds great. We'll go with that. He scrutinized the map, but they also picked yet another strange anomaly because they used some sort of method. Lost civilizations, and they're asking a lot of questions in here. I don't think anybody has the answer. Map lied in the accuracy of representation of Antarctica. However, critics are quick to point out that the Reis map barely resembles the real continent at all. Well, I'm sorry, it was drawn in the 1500s. You know, I mean, but clearly they knew it was there.
Yeah, clearly knew it was
He
there.
mapped onto it, so that's interesting.
So there was a seafaring civilization. Is what some people argue is that there was a seafaring civilization that discovered Antarctica, probably North and South America. But at some point, we had a reset, in which could happen today. Like we have no.
When was well, go ahead.
Yeah, we have no protection against another comet or
Right.
Asteroid hitting us.
Yeah, we do. We send Bruce Willis up there. He drills it out. You plant the nuke. You blow that bad boy to smithereens.
But yeah, we got to see it coming though. We have there's a percentage of the sky that we don't even notice anymore. But also
you send Bruce Willis and Steven Tyler up there.
Yeah,
and they knock that bitch out.
Come on, but
No
they got to
problem.
know it's up there first.
So, go back to the flood though.
The flood.
When was it?
I think we speculated as 10,000 BC.
Okay.
Time.
So a long time ago.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then so before that, we say that's oral tradition. We don't have anything that's any kind of written history.
Yeah.
Beyond that point. So
Right.
we're kind of like this, as Graham Hancock says, we're a species with amnesia. We don't know what happened, but we have fossils of humans' bones that date back, I don't know, 400,000
Dude, don't we
years.
have fossils of giants too? Haven't they found very large skeletons in certain parts of the world?
Who were the giants? The Bible says the giants were.
No.
The Bible says they were Genesis 6 that they were half-bred angel humans.
Oh. Genesis chapter 6. You got a verse?
Say 20 something, but let's just do chapter 6. It's close enough. There's not that many verses in chapter 6.
1 through 20, biblia.com.
So,
And now for a reading from the word. The Nephilim. Here it is right here.
Verse 4. There we go.
Verse 4 of Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore... Well, that's quite explicit, dude.
Quite explicit.
Wow. When the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them, these were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown.
Now, some scholars would say, oh, these were just God believing men having children with non-believer women.
Okay.
But somehow their kids became men of renown. They were miraculous. So other translations for this Nephilim hit the little number 2 beside that Nephilim.
Okay.
There.
We're gonna go to the or giants. It says.
Or
Now,
giants.
That's the footnote.
Footnote.
The footnote on Nephilim. When you click on it.
Or giants. That Nephilim word is an interesting Hebrew word too. It could also be even translated to sons of Orion.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Why would Hebrew translate to sons of Orion when he's not a biblical character at all?
Orion, like the stars,
Right.
Like so.
Oh, sons of the stars.
So yeah, like
Gotcha. Like from
specifically
heaven.
Orion's.
Yeah,
like
divine
the,
almost.
the constellation.
Gotcha.
And so that would be like sons of the angels from that area or whatever.
Look at this verse, dude. By the way, verse 2. The sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose.
Any they chose.
I mean, they had it easy, dude.
They might not.
They gotta take one of those, one of those, one of those. Only the attractive ones too, apparently.
There may have been consent. There may have not have been.
Well, we don't know.
So
it sounded so loud when I said "well" just then.
So the only other discussion. So this is a brief little blip.
Let me pause one more thing.
Sure.
Don't forget that. But I do notice that this is saying, it says the Nephilim, right? And then it calls them again, the sons of God. But then it refers to daughters. It's the daughters of man.
Daughters of man. Yeah.
Why is that differentiated?
Yeah, why is that different?
And so that kind of lends to your theory. So what's the blip you're saying?
This is like the only real blip of. I mean, there's like Exodus and a couple other like Leviticus and stuff where they talk about descendants of the Nephilim and the spies that Moses and Aaron have going into these cities are like, we're like grasshoppers to
the
them.
deep state.
Yeah, we're like grasshoppers to them. They're so huge, blah blah blah, and so they may have not have been exaggerating. They may have been actually tall dudes. And
why wouldn't they be too? Like, why wouldn't the sons of God be like these grand, beasts?
Yeah, and then they have.
Do you think God is going to create someone in His image that's 4.5 feet tall, 5 foot tall?
Yeah.
No, He's going to create somebody in His image that's like a badass 12 foot, like could ride a moose type guy.
Moose. Yeah, tame a moose.
I would imagine.
But they also are mentioned in the Book of Enoch, which is non-canonical.
Yeah.
Old Testament kind of stuff.
Right.
But there is, I think Peter references the Book of Enoch in the Book of Jude, I think. But
he does.
I think so.
I didn't know.
Look up quotes from Book of Enoch in New Testament.
Okay, let's see. Book of Enoch mentioned in New Testament. It's so interesting, dude. Like, so I think if you run into a average run of the mill,
Jude 1:14, 15, but also in Hebrews, the average run of the mill Christian or what?
Do you think they ever think about Nephilim? No, I mean they're mostly focused on salvation and Jesus, and that's great, and they should be, but they're not thinking about the sons of God seeing daughters that they find attractive, coming into them, as the text says right there in the verse, and like producing. I mean, that just blows my mind, dude. You know what I mean? And a lot of this stuff is not studied in the traditional church, but it's still considered the Word of God. It's still the canonized Bible,
Sure.
And yet it's just so much of it is overlooked for purely for the gospel story.
But it's also interesting that the people that the apostles would quote from the Book of Enoch, but the Book of Enoch is not canonical.
Right.
So that they thought it was interesting that they would quote, but what the Book of Enoch,
there's 3 references: Luke, Jude, and Hebrews.
What's interesting that because the Book of Enoch covers that whole topic of Nephilim extensively, like that's the whole book
And that's why they were like, well, we can't canonize that. We don't
Yeah,
need him
we know.
knowing there was the Nephilim.
Yeah. All right. So, and then Enoch expresses who the demons were in this book. When the Nephilim died, since they were half human, half angel, their souls had nowhere to go, so they became earthbound spirits that became the demons that
Really?
that are talked about in the New Testament as demons
That possess people?
possessing people and asking you to go into a herd of pigs instead of being cast into the abyss because they wanted to continue to be earthbound. They didn't want to go into hell or the abyss or whatever.
Whoa. But there are in that what would you call it? Lore. I'll call it lore for lack of a better word.
Sure.
There were other demons that just existed like angels existed.
No. There's a distinction between fallen angels and demons. And demons are explicitly the souls of the dead Nephilim.
Which almost kind of makes sense because the Nephilim weren't the hybrids. Their sons would have been the hybrids because it was the sons of God with the daughters of man, and the Nephilim were the sons of God. Is
that right? No,
that's what Genesis said.
It says Nephilim were walking among the earth on that day.
Oh, yes, you're right. It says the
days.
Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward.
And then it discusses their origin.
When the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them.
Yeah, that was through the Nephilim where they're the hybrids.
These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Yeah. This is blowing my mind right now.
Yeah. So when you got those other cultures so when you ask the South Americans who built the step pyramids and stuff, they say the giants made them. And so what we could have here is that the giants were the worldwide civilization.
Okay.
In Genesis 6,
that's how they built such grand buildings, by the way. It was much easier for them because they could probably haul more, lift more.
Let's go back to Genesis 6.
Okay. What do we want? NIV? I want King James, dude.
All right. So right after that, right after he mentions the Nephilim and their mighty men and all this stuff, you got God saw the wickedness of man on the earth was great.
Verse 5.
And that every imagination of thoughts of his heart were evil continuing.
Wow. Only evil continually.
Yeah. So they're just
So they'd gotten pretty bad.
They were corrupt. Okay.
Yeah.
So then what does he decide to do? He's like, well, I guess I better wipe these.
Grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man, beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air. For it repenteth me that I have made them.
I was like, don't do that, please. But you have a situation here is that the Great Flood apparently killed a lot of these giant folk. What also could have happened is that the cities that the giant folk were living in were at a sea level that was lower than where it is today.
Right.
Okay.
And we have evidence, plenty of evidence of cities that are buried below sea level nowadays. Roads, everything.
From the shores of Japan to just right outside of Egypt.
Right.
To, all over the place. And so there's some evidence of there, and Graham Hancock wrote a huge ass book about underwater civilizations. And so that's kind of one of my theories is that the worldwide civilization may have been a large part responsible from these giant dudes, whoever they were, whether they were extraterrestrial hybrids or as the Sumerians would say. The Sumerians would say they were extraterrestrial people, and then, but then the Bible says they're angel people or sons of Orion or whatever.
Right.
So so it's interesting that a lot of cultures are talking about these giant folk.
Yes, there's definitely continuity there, and giant folk could build much bigger structures, and haul much more material to build these structures and everything. And so, why though? Let's think about that. Let's go deeper. Why would the powers that be... I haven't considered a lot of this stuff before too deeply. Why would the powers that be cover up the existence of a giant race.
Mm.
Why would they want to? Why would they want to manipulate the history? I mean, at its core, even me saying that, I'm like, well, to manipulate. That's why. I mean, just to lie to you, prove that they can lie to you, and keep the knowledge for themselves. Because if they give you the knowledge, you might become more powerful, more open-minded. You might do what I really think it is. If you knew the whole truth of everything, you might actually do for yourself instead of relying on the powers that be to provide for you, just like they provide you an education, a job, a society, a civilization. The structure provides all that for us nowadays. And if you knew that, you might go out and say, well, I'm going to be strong and provide for myself. Maybe. You might say that. But why?
Say that. You might say...
Why would they erase this from history?
Well, you might say something like, there's enough resources on the entire planet for everybody to live in harmony and peace and not, no poverty and that sort of thing.
Right. And then they wouldn't have control.
They wouldn't have control, yeah. Like
they would be brought down to a level while the rest of us all got brought up, and they don't want to come down off the pedestal and meet us in the middle.
Right.
Dude, we see that happening today with the virus, as it were.
Yeah.
How Amazon, Walmart, online corporations that didn't have to shut down. Profits are through the roof. Like, it's literally the definition of the rich getting richer.
Oh,
While like my neighbor who works on airplanes,
right,
got his hours furloughed enough to where he could make a little bit of money every week, but he couldn't claim any unemployment or any of the little $600 boost they were adding on. Like, he couldn't get any of that money because he was still technically employed hourly, but they cut his hours way down to where he was making like a third of what he was making before. And so where am I going with that? Oh, so like him, they keep you down. They close your small business, restaurants, salons, gyms, these basic things. It's like, how are we supposed to operate in the world?
Yeah.
And yet Amazon is just cranking more than they've ever cranked before to new, heights unknown.
Yeah.
And Amazon and everyone else is blowing up. That's not like a small business style. Like, it's just the rich getting richer. And it's kind of the same thing as like they bury the truth so that they can use it to their advantage. That's what you do with power, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently
they wrote the book on power, or at least going by the guidebook, huh?
Yeah. And what is the guidebook? Is it like the Rockefeller? What's the other family? The Rockefeller and the freaking. Why am I losing it? Rothschilds. Is it like knowledge that's just been passed down through the family for so long and kept secret?
I mean, it would be funny if like all the rich people had get out of jail free cards, and then all the
they do. It's called money.
All the common folk are. Money, but I mean, like all the common folk, go to jail. Like if what that David Straight guy was saying was true, like that he was saying he was helping people get out of jail and or helping them through their trials. That would be insane. That the average person wouldn't need to go to jail for certain crimes or whatever because it's not common law or whatever. Like he was expressing like law was like when you break down like an acronym like land, air, and water.
Right.
And then so it was like common law, and he's like, and then there's like ecclesiastical law, and then there's like this third law, and he's like all these other laws. He's like, these aren't like real laws. He's like, and then he was talking about also that we're not even represented in Congress by the proper number of representatives. He's like, you're supposed to be a representative for every certain number of population. And he's like, we should have tens of thousands of representatives for the population that we have in the United States. And he's like, they get their stuff from the Masons, and the Masons have a quorum. And he's like, they don't even have a full quorum of Representatives to write any laws. And he's like, so any of the laws that they have currently written since whatever time period are not even lawful. They're not actual like. And then he said he expressed that to Trump, and Trump was like, yeah, I know that.
Wait, this guy talked to Trump?
Yeah, this dude was saying that he worked for whatever department he was busting pedophiles. They would be black bagging pedophiles in the middle of the night, taking them to Guantanamo Bay, and sentencing them there.
Whoa.
Because
that's cool.
Because they had money and influence. He said they had arrested 3,000 pedophiles.
Well,
since
even
Trump.
the mainstream media reported that. Like you saw the reports, Trump. I mean, we can probably look it up, dude. Trump has, again, I've talked a lot of crap on Trump because of his virus, the way he handled the virus and everything. But he's still like, if you look at the pedophile arrests, let's look at pedophile arrests under Trump. The numbers are through the roof. It's higher than it's ever been.
Yeah. So he was on a special task force that was going after pedophiles.
I thought I was going to die. How Donald Trump's immigration agenda set back the clock on fighting human trafficking. Of course, Time says the exact opposite of that.
Right.
Yeah. Him not letting immigrants in the country has allowed more human trafficking to go on, even though what they call coyotes, who the left thought was actual animals, were bringing underage girls who were not related to them across the border, probably raping them all along the way to get them into the country.
Yeah.
So, okay, courthouse news. Prosecution of child sex traffickers plummeted under Trump. So it's all fake news, dude. I mean, you can't even, like... I've seen... Of course, I can't Google these things. You got to go much deeper than I can go right here in this moment on Google. But, like... I've seen the articles. I've seen the statistics. I've seen the articles when they come out.
Yeah.
That, Trump is arresting rings of pedophiles, dude, locking 50, 60 people up in an operation at one time within a few days or something.
Well,
so
I would say this, like if that's the case, if they're actually like getting the high profile ones and sending them down to Guantanamo Bay and interrogating the shit out of them, waterboarding them or whatever to cough up who their handlers are or their people that are really controlling them.
Right.
That would be a lot. That you could possibly prosecute a lot of people, but I mean, do those people have get out of jail free cards? Like I don't know.
Like how political and rich people's sons, daughters, relatives get in scandals all the time and are let off the hook.
Or like Bill Clinton could be on
how the Podestas are molestas and everybody knows it. And they just keep doing what they do in politics. They have art, and Tony Podesta has all this art in his home that's like completely disturbing.
Wow.
I mean,
who are the Podestas anyway?
John Podesta,
Yeah.
that creepy looking motherfucker was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. Let's just get a good look at him, dude. Let's just get a good look and see if he's a molester. Why does his name rhyme with molester so easily? Also, okay. There's his ugly mug. Everyone knows. We don't even have to show. There's the Podester, and then you got Tony, who's like what would you call him? He's he's not really in politics, but he is. He's like an advisor type guy, right? Okay. Tony, let's look at his art. Let's see if he has an art collection that Google will show us. Oh, there it is. There's one of, I think it was Charles Manson's victims that he decapitated and bent there because he liked to bend their bodies into weird shapes after he murdered them. And so there is Tony Podesta, and there is his artwork in his home, which is a representation of the image of, I believe, a child who was bent into that position. Like, there's an actual photo of that, a real living human who was murdered, bent into that position, which he proudly displays as art in his home. He also has this picture, which is just awkward to even look at. as a part of his gallery. It's clearly young girls in a weird bathroom type room with underwear on, like looking ashamed. Yeah, and they just look into it for yourself. That's really all I want to see of this disturbingness. But it's all over, man. It's and so he's the brother of John, who was the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton. They have ties to Ghislaine Maxwell and the whole thing, man. I mean, it's some people say that Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park, who killed himself apparently. He happens to look an awful lot like John Podesta, dude. I mean, he happens to look an awful lot like him. And some people were saying he was John Podesta's illegitimate son, who was gonna out all this stuff, and that's why he killed himself. I mean, they do look eerily exactly the same. Just absolutely the same. Let's see what this says. Yes, 100%. I believe both Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington were murdered. This is RomaniaJournal.ro. Of course, though. Oh, this is December 17th. No, wait, no. This was written January 2020, updated. But yeah, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, they were both murdered. And they, like, if you look into that, they were both had some things to say about child sex trafficking. And we're kind of starting to go down that road. And they both killed themselves conveniently.
What's his name? Was it Corey?
Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
And his friend. That was a crazy thing that happened.
With like Joe Rogan. Pull that mic right up to your face there, dude.
Yeah,
Pull that right up to your face.
The Corey Feldman documentary that got hacked mid live stream.
Right.
Just like that was crazy too.
Now I will say about Corey Feldman though, who I do think he has some information. I do think he was molested, and I think he's right. But man, he's like kind of a little bit messed up, so it's hard to get the information out of him because he's like all over the place.
Kind of damaged. Yeah.
He came out and he said he was going to name somebody, and I think he named Charlie Sheen. And Denise Richards was like on file as saying something about when she divorced Charlie Sheen, something about him being a pedophile.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was his wife, so she maybe would know something about that. But yeah, that stuff goes deep. I'm surprised you didn't know about the Podestas, but that was big in the Hillary emails with they're going to ban me for saying Pizzagate, but that was where Pizzagate came from, was in the Podesta, a lot of Podesta's emails between him and people he was corresponding with and stuff. We're talking about like cheese pizza and walnut sauce and Obama having hot dogs delivered to the White House and like all this stuff that the more emails you saw, the more you were like, they sure do talk about cheese pizza a lot for a bunch of rich political folks. Like, and it was obviously, in my opinion, code for the underhanded child, underage sex trafficking operations they were taking part in. So does the Crystal Palace not exist anymore? You're telling me they built a cast iron? Oh my. There it is, dude. So they built this structure. Look at this. To go back to the World's Fair stuff.
Can we pause it real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta pee real quick.
And 3, 2, 1.
And
we're back. We're back online. Back deep in the discussion here. So check this out, dude. I'm looking at this. Okay, this was from 6 months, Hyde Park for 6 months, 8 feet. Okay, but there wasn't anywhere big enough to house such a show for the World's Fair in London in 1851. 6 months. Solution, move it to Penge Crystal Palace. Okay, so you're telling me they built this bad boy of glass and cast iron. Look at that monolithic structure, quite large, and this is what's left of it today, is what they're telling me. Some stairs, some stone, and some trees. I mean, if you're looking at these trees, let's say this tree right here, can I zoom in anymore? Let's say this tree right here
was inside the structure.
Yeah. No, all these trees were growing in there all along. Yeah, so was this gigantic radio tower. But actually, that's a good reference point. Like, imagine how tall this radio tower is if you were standing at the base of it. Even if you're, I mean, we could really do it here. You could measure these people, extrapolate out the distance, whatever. But this building is huge, needless to say. If those arches are that big, and then you come up and you're telling me those are the same arches. So what happened to this structure? We didn't need this giant cast iron. And how did they even build it? I mean, what is going on here, dude? That they were building these giant structures for the World's Fair and then just destroying them or being done with them, right? Why would you invest the manpower and the money? And here's a question. Why don't we do anything like that today? Like, so one theory was that that's kind of what 9/11 was. It was like burning down history, like changing history, rewriting it by destroying it, kind of thing, you know? And that doesn't really make sense the way I'm saying it, but that's because it doesn't even, a lot of it makes sense in my brain because I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I mean, like Rumsfeld, days before 9/11, came before Congress
Dude.
and was like, we've got some unaccounted for money, right?
9/11 is like voter fraud. All the evidence is right there in front of your face, but no one wants to admit that it happened.
I mean,
No, dude, no. 19 hijackers who trained on single-engine propeller planes in Florida used box cutters on a plane full of hundreds of people to hijack and get into the captain's, what do you call it? Get into the cockpit.
mm-hmm.
And then they flew these jets with precision accuracy, did a nice 180-degree sweeping turn right into the... They didn't miss. They didn't clip it with the wing. They didn't, like, accidentally go in between the two buildings, blow a wing off, crash somewhere in the city. Oh, no, dude. These guys, pinpoint accuracy, like a missile, able to fly right into the sides of these buildings. Like, how, dude? How?
Yeah.
I just don't believe that if I went and trained in a propeller plane, there is a very low percentage chance that if you put me in the jet and said, fly it, nose it in to this spot right here, very low chance I hit the target. Like, I might get close, but no, of course, the hijackers were able to crash commercial jetliners directly into the side of the buildings perfectly, and the entire plane was consumed inside the building in an explosion.
It produced enough heat.
It was immaculate, dude. It was divine. It was divinely appointed that they perfectly crashed those, perhaps by Allah, I'm not sure.
That's true.
Perfectly crashed into those buildings.
Jury's out on that.
I mean, so all this stuff, right? And they just lie to our face, and it's the same as Coronu, and it's the same as election alleged fraud, which is absolutely true. And it's the same with censorship. I wrote on my notes right here, I wrote one word, Zuckerberg, okay? Because that's all exactly what he is. Like, it's what Zuckerberg does on Facebook. It's what Google does with YouTube. They all lie. They all manipulate. They censor anything that's the truth. They ban you. They put on the president's tweets, this claim about election fraud is disputed. Like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you so scared if the information isn't true? And we have access to information like we've never had before at our fingertips. Like, you can go and grab and research, and you don't have to look through books and check out books. You can do it from your chair.
Right.
Why would they not let things that are just not true and so easy? If it's so easily verifiably not true, why are you so scared of the information being out there? Why are you so scared to talk about election fraud on the news if there was no fraud?
There's like a timetable that makes them nervous.
What do you mean by the timetable?
Like they got a certain amount of time. Like he's like I just got to get to inauguration day, or I just got to get
right.
to and
then
like,
it's irreversible.
It's
yeah,
irreversible.
You're
yeah.
right. No, you're exactly right. And I've heard that uttered other places too, where it's like that's why they're and like for being the president-elect, as they call him. Where's Biden at, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Where's he at? He wants to come out with all these messages of unity, but he doesn't ever show up anywhere to say anything. Mm-hmm. He's like has some weird office set built in some hidden warehouse somewhere
Yeah.
with a big ass office of the president-elect behind it. He comes out, says some stupid shit that no one understands, coughs a bunch, and then goes back into hiding so that he can't be scrutinized until the 20th when he's finally inaugurated.
Yeah.
And the man's 78 years old, and he looks like a skeleton with skin stretched over it. I mean, he must really. You think he? You almost they're like,
I kind of feel like he's been hoodwinked.
or is he being forced? Is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, he could be coerced. Yeah.
Well, they have so much stuff on him. They're like, dude, you're gonna do it, and you're gonna be our puppet, or it's over for you. Do
Yeah.
you want to live a few more years, or do you want to die right now?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, I guess. What do you guys need me to do? We need you to read this. We need you to say this. We need you to go here.
Mm.
I mean, the guy only had the weak. He was the lamest candidate in the history of the party. It seems to me he had the smallest crowds of all time that made people sit in chairs and draw circles around them. Meanwhile, Trump is drawing 30, 20, 50,000 people to his rallies. Oh, but Biden got the most votes in history.
Yep.
The lamest guy in history got the most votes in history. I'm sorry, anyone with their head screwed on straight who lives their life in any kind of way that resembles the truth can see that, man, when things aren't lining up, something's going on. You can't just keep ignoring it and be like, oh, no, it's probably nothing. It's probably coincidence. It's happenstance. No, there's something there. It's just like all the other stuff that we've looked into and that we've been talking about that we're like just scratching the surface of on this episode, where we're like, whoa, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't know about that. It's like, yeah, there's a lot you don't freaking know, man. But when you start seeing the clues, you start thinking like, maybe everything I thought was true isn't. Yeah. And there's evidence there. Man, it's so frustrating. Like, it's not just conspiracy theory. There's things that this conspiracy theory has been like, it's a twisted term anyways, dude. You know?
Who came up with the term?
I can't remember.
I think it was Richard Nixon.
Yeah, they coined it. Like, but a conspiracy is just like people who are going against your narrative or your plan in secret.
But did Richard Nixon have a conspiracy going on?
Probably. I mean, what happens if you just type in Nixon conspiracy? Who was it that lost to Kennedy? They said they stole it from him. JFK stole it from. Was it Nixon that JFK stole it from?
Maybe.
I mean, you just can't. Yeah, I think it was Watergate that started conspiracy theory as a derogatory term.
Yeah, he's like, these are just conspiracy theories. And then,
yeah. And what about scientific theories? You know, we don't write those off as being irrelevant. No, people want to worship them and believe them like they're the ruling God rules of the universe.
Right.
But a conspiracy theory, I mean, I don't get it, man. When the evidence is there, I just see this picture shows the two superimposed on each other.
Yeah, just to get,
I didn't realize that. There's the radio tower right there with everything. So it's showing you that this used to be this. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, it's all completely gone to nothing, even though it was this massive structure that must have cost so much money and so much manpower. We would never destroy something like that. We would repurpose it and build condos, baby. That's prime real estate. All right?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, dude. And I got to look into this World's Fair stuff because it's making me think that, most of history was a lie. That's just what it's making me think.
There's a tree inside. Look.
Right here?
Here. Yeah, here.
Yeah, that's what they'll tell you. Like, no, there was a tree inside of it the whole time, and that tree dropped some acorn. Look at this, dude. Hyde Park. Wow. This is the one. I mean, I don't know if that's an actual photo or a representation of what they think. Why isn't this stuff here anymore, dude? Mm. Why isn't it here? Plan of the Crystal Palace.
Wow.
Stained glass, British, French, Belgian. That's all their booths from all over the world. Multiple. It's upper floor. It's a ground floor. 2 entrances. Oh, man. It's just... Why is the truth stranger than fiction, but then nobody wants to believe it when it's right in front of their face? I also heard that maybe the Hindenburg was a false flag.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There could have been people on board that needed to die, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the old Hindenburg, dude. Yep, just so happened to be I believe it was like the only blimp that ever anything like that ever happened to. I don't know. I kind of believe that that could be a disaster. I mean, it was full of flammable gas. Could have actually happened that way.
Yeah.
But what do we know about anything? This is what happens when you start to crack into it. You're like, whoa, what do we even know anything about anything? And we don't. So that you shouldn't be so sure of yourself as you're searching through these things. You know, you just have to keep an open mind, but you just can't deny what's right in front of you. And there's no, what's the word for it? There's nothing wrong, for lack of a better vocabulary. There's nothing wrong with thinking that things aren't exactly what you've been told they are. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on extraterrestrials?
Extraterrestrials. I don't have a lot of thoughts on extraterrestrials, but hard to say.
Hard to say. You wanna Google images, type in Alistair, like ALES, Crowley.
Yep.
Channeled.
Okay.
And look at this image that's like fifth over, sixth over to the right of that.
The Egyptian guy?
To the right of that one.
Let me zoom in. Hold on, people at home. I'm going to get you the image here.
To the right of the Egyptian guy.
Right here.
Yeah, that one. Click on that one.
Okay, Pinterest. Why is this on Pinterest? Today they call them angels and demons. Tomorrow they will call them something else.
And so you got on the left, you got Aleister Crowley's
channeled spirit.
LAM entity that he channeled.
Where did he channel it from?
It's through magical means.
Okay.
Like, you know.
And then what? He had this vision, and that's what he drew?
No. This is a North Carolina abduction case sketch.
Oh.
On the right.
Oh, I see. North Carolina abduction case sketch, and then that's his channeled vision.
Right. That's his sketch. Yeah.
There's something about that big-eyed. Why is that a meme? You know, like, and when I mean meme, I mean like a continuous idea, a repeated idea. Why with the big eyes, the large cranium? Like Rogan talks about that a lot when he talks about aliens. Like, why are they represented in that way? And let's see, Aleister Crowley, the way. Tibetan word for the way or path lama is he who goeth, the specific title of the gods of Egypt. The treader of the path. Its numerical value is 71, the number of this book. I don't know what to make of this. I mean, would aliens look this way? I have no idea. Did they exist? I mean,
would demons look that way? You know, I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
But it's interesting that he said that, you know, angels and demons. This is what we call them today. This image is what we call them today as angels or demons. But tomorrow they're going to call them something else, and because tomorrow we're going to call them extraterrestrials.
I don't know a lot about Aleister Crowley, to be perfectly honest with you.
He was an occult guy. He was in a lot of different magical orders back in the day. He's been rumored to have relations with the royal family in England. Some said that he's the actual father of Queen Elizabeth today.
Huh. Now that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Crowley. That's Aleister Crowley?
I don't know.
Maybe in his earlier life, huh?
Yeah.
Take a look at that.
But yeah, he's involved. Like, he's involved with a lot of different people. Like, if you look at like the famous people has ties to, people like the dude who founded Scientology. You know,
Ron Hubbard.
Ron Hubbard. He's got ties to a lot of different people who went on to do some crazy and amazing things. But yeah, then he's tied to these magical orders, and so were they. You know, they were all about the different magical orders.
Well, he was just a kook, dude. You know, let's just write him off.
A kook.
Let's just write him off. And ignore it.
A kook that who became, very influential and famous and wealthy.
Yeah. I mean, let's just do like what they do to Alex Jones, you know?
Oh yeah.
Let's just write him off, dude. He doesn't have anything to say. Everything he says is crazy. Let's just pigeonhole him. And then we don't have to listen to anything he says. That way, when he tells the truth, it's also a lie
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
you can't believe anything that guy says. No, that's interesting. So, what are we tying together here with the alien, with the sketch?
Yeah, well, a lot of religious people today will say that extraterrestrials are just demons, and that's their rebranding that they've undergone. Is that they're one and the same?
But I thought the demons were the dead Nephilim.
Right.
So why would they look with giant craniums, though?
I guess they could make themselves look however they want at that point.
Why would they choose this form, though?
Yeah. Yeah. Why that form? Is it less scary to be like this little frail dude with big ol' eyes? I don't know.
Drawing of a demon Aleister Crowley channeled in 1904. Non-corporeal intelligence dictated the Book of Law. He wrote a book?
Yeah,
He's kind of like a Joseph Smith, Ron Hubbard type guy. Where he's like, something came to me and spoke to me, and that's what dictated these writings.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't really know what I think about extraterrestrials. I believe in things. I don't even know if I can use the word believe, but I think things go way deeper than, honestly, you and I will ever comprehend, honestly.
Probably.
I do hope that there is. I know people that have done DMT, mushrooms, things like that, say they've seen these. They don't fear death. They've seen a different side of the universe, whatever. Like they've been almost like they've been to the other side, and they come out with this deeper understanding. And so part of me hopes, all we can do is hope, that you receive these answers, or you receive some sort of peace that it doesn't matter anymore or something. But it would be nice. I know when I was a kid, I used to hope that, like, because I was raised Christian, I used to hope that, man, I hope when I get to heaven, God will just show me everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Just tell me
All the
everything,
knowledge.
explain it all. I'd also like to watch the movie of my life back, minus all the awkward parts. Okay. All the cringy parts. But like, I would love to, guest starring Peaches. Get Peaches on the mic there. Peaches, where are you at on extraterrestrials and DMT? Peaches, nothing. She's got nothing. She didn't have much to say. But so I don't know what to say, man. I would hope to receive all the answers though, in the end, and I don't know what to believe here on this earth. I really think, and I'm gonna. This is gonna be the final topic. Okay, I'm gonna end because it leads me into it. The last thing that I wrote that I thought was interesting. One word: building. And I think what is important to do here on this earth is not necessarily to like lose yourself in conspiracy. And it's not, though this stuff is interesting, and I think it's perfectly okay to be interested in it, in the World's Fair, in politics, in the pedophile rings, and the Satanist, and wanting to figure it all out. It's perfectly natural to want the answers.
Sure.
I think the most important thing to focus on, though, is like your boy, what's his name? Garrett J.
White.
The creators and the whatever the other.
And the takers.
And the takers, dude.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, and there's a bunch of people who say it a bunch of different ways. Owen Benjamin is like, he's all Mr. Homestead. You got to support yourself, disconnect and build your own thing. Yeah. And I think those people, that theme, they may, all these people may live completely different lives.
Yeah.
But that theme really resonates with me. And I think that's one of the most important things is like, what are you building with your time here? So you might even build an investigation. You might build knowledge that leads others to, a place where they feel like, oh, I can become a builder now. I can become a creator now. But either way, you should be doing something that creates something, because that's what we were designed, in my opinion, to do in this mortal coil, like, because we don't have superior knowledge. We can't create anything that's going to reveal to us everything. Where there is no looking glass where we can just see through time and understand everything. But what we can do is take raw material and then fashion it into almost anything you can imagine within the physical capabilities of this realm, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that should be, and that's something I want to focus more on. And that's why I'm trying to be more consistent with like, hey, let's record a podcast. Like let's you and I do something. Let's get something out there. Like,
Right.
let's, I built that fence outside. I want a fence. I want to build it myself. Like, there's something to be said for like producing something yourself, an original creation that wouldn't have existed without your hand touched. I mean, is that not exactly what God is as described as? Like he breathed life. He used his hands to mold it and then breathed life into us. I mean, and we're created in his image. So that's exactly what we're able to do is to take material and breathe life into it and create something that otherwise couldn't have existed, And in the end, I love thinking about all this different stuff, but my main thing is just to remember, like, but what are you producing? What are you contributing? What are you creating? And to me, that's the most interesting thing.
Like legacy creation.
Legacy creation, yeah, totally, yeah. Like, what's going to be here after you're gone? Even if all you can create is children that you raise right, that's a great thing too. People hate on that because they're like, oh, anybody can produce a child.
Yeah.
Go produce one then.
Quality
Like,
child.
yeah. Like you think it's so great, you think it's so easy. I mean, anybody can do anything if you want to look at it that way. But I don't think you should, And I think it all ties together in a way that's what they want us. I'm saying they, dude. There's a they out there somewhere, and that's what they want us to forget is that we're creators, we're builders.
Right.
We can generate things on our own. We don't need their system of control to live a happy, wealthy life. Like you, if you're willing, you can do it on your own. Just like somehow these guys built whole freaking cities that they destroyed after the World's Fair. Okay, they created them, and they didn't even care. They're like, yeah, that's cool, I guess. Burn it down. See you in 10 years when we do the next one.
Yeah, we'll use these raw materials to build something else. Really? Is that how we're gonna do this?
Yeah. No, they didn't. I don't even think that. I think they just crumbled under the ground. What else? Once you've fashioned it into something, how can you if you have a big slab of granite and you put it on a countertop? Once you hit it with the sledgehammer to remove it, you can't really do anything with that granite anymore.
Yeah.
You could maybe grind it up and try to reform it, but that's not how granite works. Granite's a slab from the earth that the earth compressed that you cut a slice out of. So, even all that stuff, you could melt down the metal. You can't really reform the glass into more glass,
Cycle the glass, I guess.
Because it requires so much energy and to get out the impurities and everything, and, you're going to lose stuff that burns. I mean, it's just, it's insane to think that they burn those things down. So, but I do think maybe that's part of the focus. They don't want you to feel like an individual anymore. They want you to feel like you need the system, when the reality is you can actually create your own system. So suck on that. What do you got to say about that? I'll give you the final word for episode 3.
Final word. I mean, I feel like the operating system that all of civilization is operating under right now currently is an operating system, right? And I think that we could use the same resources that we have available to us today, and we could create a more efficient, more powerful, more freedom, induced system that would be better and work more efficiently, and that people would be happier, and there'd be less poverty and all of that. And so it's like, I think they don't want us to realize that that the system that has been created and been handed down to us from all these generations of goldsmiths or whoever, it's like that's archaic. I think we can go into an age where, hopefully AI is going to be great for us. Elon Musk is a bit hesitant. I'm just hoping that the first one that emerges is going to be benevolent. But I feel like we could go into a nice golden renaissance of an age if people stand up for freedom and stand up for our basic human rights.
And it requires the individual to wake up and become a creator,
For sure.
not just a taker, to get to that level.
Yeah,
Everyone has to be creating.
you can't be handed success.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the way it works. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
let it pour out of your own heart.
Yep. And I think it's a system of manipulation, dude, that they've formed and they don't want to let go of. And that's why they fight and ignore and put money behind things that's like, no, we need to keep them all manipulated because that's their system that they've created. And
Right.
so I was gonna say like, oh, you can't even blame them. I mean, you can blame them, but that's just their system. That's the world they live in, dude. And it works for them. I mean, so in that sense, you can't blame them, even though they're evil for
Right.
doing it. You can't blame them for taking the advantages. The only thing you can do is break free. And I'm not saying you got to go live off the grid and all that stuff, but you need to take care and be capable of taking care of things yourself as much as you can. And you need to be putting something out there that is more than just, that maybe is an original thought of your own, or in at least your own opinion, rather than just drinking from the teat of the system
Right.
and then telling other people, oh, no, this information's already come down the pipeline. Why would you deny it? There is no other truth besides what's been reported, what we've been told. Like, why would you think there is, you know? And that closed-mindedness, and that keeps the loop closed on the system. So there's no faults, there's no cracks, because once there is, kind of like you're saying, it's like it could become a renaissance where people are like, whoa, we can be independent, we can do it on our own. And I think there is we're talking about it right now, so there's a small piece of it right there, but you can see it, dude. Van life, homesteading, all that stuff is like blowing up right now because people realize, like, man, I can be more free. I don't have to take a mortgage from the bank and, owe hundreds of thousands of dollars for 30 years, pay double. I mean, you get a mortgage for $200K, you're paying like $475,000 over once it's all said and done in 30 years. So,
for sure.
And I'm not saying mortgages are evil or anything like that, even though I think they trend that way. They're just another part of the system of manipulation and control. And the only way to break free is to recognize your own independence and your own ability to harness your talents to do something different. Something like maybe Phil Reynolds Fitness, okay? Which we're offering a promo code on 2020. No, I'm just kidding. But, something like that. You create your own thing,
sure.
that uses your talents and your abilities to do something unique. And I'm sorry I said I'd give you the last word, but I didn't do it. All right. I had to have it for myself. It's mine, my own.
Right.
My precious.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good spot to end it right there. And I do still want to hear the last word from you, and then I'm going to close it out with a last word of the discussion, and then I'm just going to do a sign off.
Okay. All right. Well,
What are your final thoughts?
I mean, it just comes down to what's in your control, right?
Hold on, I'm going to zoom in on you.
Zoom in.
Give it to the people, dude. Give the people your final thoughts.
I mean, it just comes into what is in your realm of control. Grant Cardone has talked about stuff like this. Garrett J. White.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I wrote Cardone down.
You wrote
That's
Cardone?
one of my topics, so it's funny that you bring him up.
He talks about what's in my realm of control. Like if
Yep.
my house loses power, should I blame the power company? And he's like, I could have a generator. That could be in my realm of control. Food runs out in the grocery store. Should I blame the grocery store for that, or could I stockpile some rations at my home just in case? And we're talking about different things like that, or being in having a plot of land where you could leave the city if you needed to. These are all things like, we're talking about homesteading, or, being able to provide for yourself no matter the situation. People did it for hundreds of years, thousands of years, really, and so it's like, we're so dependent on a system, and it's like, to think about, and it's not supposed to be something to be worried about or crazy about, but, just to be thinking like that could be your life. It could be something where you have that realm of power, and freedom that You know, that's not the norm. You know, the norm is to go paycheck to paycheck. And so, thanks for checking out our video. Thanks for
like I
staying
hear
till
the bumper music, dude.
Thanks for staying till 2 hours and 19
That's
minutes.
right, dude. That's how we do's it.
Yeah.
All right, this has been episode 3 of the AETV live podcast broadcast, co-hosted by Phil Reynolds Fitness. All right, check him out. You can find him everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Yo Mama's House,
Yeah,
getting down.
PhilReynoldsFitness.com.
All right, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Wait, hold on, Phil. Get in on this. Peace.